he is a narcissist. And I'm in no doubt in my mind that the reason Rupert Lowe was set aside was because he was doing so well for the party. Rupert is a team player. He is not someone who goes out and seeks his ego being massaged. But Nigel Farage's ego is extremely prickly, as it is with most narcissists. So the writing was on the wall for Rupert Lowe when he started doing so well, and Elon Musk pointed out that he'd make a better leader than Nigel Farage would at Reform UK.
Does Britain need a real small c Conservative Party on the right? Despite an impressive performance in recent months by Robert Jenrick, a future Tory leader, that party's 14 years of failure in government makes it hard for many of us to even consider going back right now. But then Reform UK, a party I proudly voted for, as I became the first commentator to predict Nigel Farage will lead a populist revolution to become Prime Minister in 2024 back last year, well, it now appears to be claiming that it is not a party on the right at all. Now, many Reform supporters are actually furious with me for even raising this incongruity, with Farage being described as a far-right racist and a pound-shot Donald Trump, as you just saw there on the front page of The Guardian, by the lunatics at the National Education Union. They're describing him as that, just as he moves away from key policies like mass deportations, concerns about demography, and NHS reform. For me, the message that Nigel and Reform need to take on is to hell with the MSM. To hell with the Westminster establishment, to hell with the British deep state. They are never going to accept us, as the National Education Union today proves. But instead, the Reform approach appears to be to present itself as the new Tories, a big tent party that sits on neither the left nor the right to appeal to the red wall. So after their latest election broadcast last night, Rob Esk posted, Nigel Farage confirms Reform are a centrist party going after the centre-left and centre-right vote. I think this is a smart play if you're going from a protest party to a party in government. What about you? That's what Rob Esk asked. And look, I fully appreciate, maybe it's smart. Like, maybe there's polling that shows this is in some way smart. But I'm going to be honest with you and level with you, even though Reform supporters don't want to hear this. It's not what I believe is needed to save the UK. I actually went and watched the party political broadcast, by the way, and it is what Farage did seem to say. Watch.
Great harm. We are a patriotic party. We don't care whether you're centre-left or centre-right. If you believe this country needs a big shake-up, use those local elections on May the 1st. Vote for Reform. Let's take over some of these councils and we'll show you in government what we can do.
Although I was very relieved to see overnight that Farage at least hasn't backed away from electoral reform. This was in an interview, by the way. With this, have you seen this guy? He's the real woke bloke at woke ITV with the woke mullet. Watch.
Are in a position where you might actually be able to get into number 10 sometime in the next few years. Do you still want rid of first past the post?
I don't think the electoral system really works. I think the three things really. One, first past the post needs looking at. Two, I do think the public should have the right to call referendums on big subjects. If you know, you might get an issue where Parliament's in a very different place in the country. So I do think an element of direct democracy needs to come in. And three, the House of Lords, don't make me laugh, stuff full of party apparatchiks and party donors. That needs a massive wholesale change. So yes, I'm for electoral reform.
Okay, so that's good. That is good for me. Love the idea of direct democracy, actually. But after the disaster with the Tories, just want to be totally clear with you that I can't vote for another centrist party. That said, I hear this clear message from Farages like Matt Goodwin, like Alex Phillips, like Gwaine Towler, like Aaron Banks, who say there is only one game in town. And there's just no chance of a new movement emerging before 2029. But that isn't going to stop Ben Habib, the former Reform deputy leader who was brutally dispatched by Nigel Farage after the last election and has confirmed this week that he is taking control of the Integrity Party to launch a new Conservative political vehicle. Now, Howard Cox, great guy. He's actually here with Alex Phillips tomorrow. He has immediately joined. But Rupert Lowe is keeping his options open, although he has ruled out a return to reform, which he intends to sue. Watch.
Well, I always said you can't win anything with bad people. And I'm afraid to say that the people I sat with in Parliament, the way they behave towards me is not how you should behave
So
towards
no
fellow party
return to
members, let alone
reform.
a fellow MP.
No return to reform, you're saying, even
No,
if you're killed by the police.
I couldn't return to reform unless there was a complete change of leadership and a complete change of structure and a proper plan to deliver for the British people.
And Rupert said today that Farage should actually be well over this 25% ceiling that he appears to have hit in national polling. And he pointed to three key issues. Let me go through them very quickly, but they are interesting. He said, one, a total and brutal lack of any substance. Daily slick videos and social media graphics look professional, but it's all just vacuous nonsense. None of it means anything. Fancy music and imaginative camera angles. So what? Who cares? Honestly, reform will fix it. How? Second issue he pointed to was backtracking on important issues like mass deportation. He says it's not something that Nigel wants to talk about. He says he's terrified of being labelled a racist by the Westminster media. Rupert says, my view, who cares? Honestly, the British people want it. Give it to them. And then he says the third issue is Farage himself. Farage won votes in Great Yarmouth, but he cost a lot too, particularly with his comments on Putin. The party was polling well before Farage returned, and we ended up on 14% nationally after the campaign. After decades of uncontrolled mass immigration decimating our country from all angles, the ground could not be more48 should be the floor, not the ceiling. So look, I decided to run two polls over the past 48 hours, because I started on Substack. Actually, my Substack audience are amazing. www.outspoken.live. Please do sign up. Have a real direct connection with me. So these are maybe the most hardcore Outspoken supporters. And I asked, which party are you most likely to support? And you'll see there I gave the options Conservative, Reform, UKIP, and then I said specifically Ben Habib's Integrity Party. Now, when put that way, you'll see Conservative 7, UKIP 4, Reform UK 38, Ben Habib's Integrity Party 52. I did think about it though, and I thought, well, maybe that might not be totally fair given that I hadn't named the other leaders in that poll. So then I went on YouTube today, where obviously we have a much bigger audience and we've already had well over 10,000 results, 10,000 votes, and the results flipped. Although I would argue these results are still very, very hopeful for a party that hasn't even officially launched. So you'll see there, Kemi Badenoch. So what I did is I listed every leader so that it was fair. I put a picture up and the leader with their party. And you'll see in fourth position, Kemi Badenoch's Conservatives with 5%. In third position, Nick Tanconi's UKIP with 7%. In the runner-up position, Ben Habib's Integrity Party with 30%, and topping that poll, Nigel Farage's Reform UK with 58%. I would argue, though, 30% for a party that hasn't even officially launched is a pretty good damn start. Although I understand there is criticism about this new party, specifically from Alex Phillips and Lawrence Fox, so I'm delighted to say Ben Habib, new leader of the Integrity Party, joins us now on the Superstar panel alongside Father Calvin Robinson. But first, the reason you're watching this show is that it's becoming increasingly difficult to trust mainstream media or the so-called fact checkers who claim to determine which facts are true. And there's good reason for that, given the debate over free speech, the controversy surrounding Brexit, and how Trump and other politicians challenging the status quo are portrayed. But I have the solution. It's called Ground News, and it's the best way to stay informed and cut through media bias and narratives so you can get the facts for yourself. Go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. But I want to show you this incredible website and app. By the way, I have the app on my phone, use it all the time in action. So let's look at my favorite speech of the year. My God, it was brilliant. US Vice President J.D. Vance at the Munich Security Conference, just tearing into European governments, including ours, for a despicable retraction of free speech, specifically around those who are silently protesting outside of abortion clinics. You can see clearly in one place that Ground News collates the 361 sources covering the story. Then they show how the story is being covered by what it calls its bias distribution service. And there's so much you can do with this. You can actually scroll down and see every article if you want to, broken down by the political position and the ownership of the publication. So in this case, Newsmax, GB News were fair and accurate. HuffPost and The Independent most certainly were not. But what's more, Ground News gets to know you personally, providing you with the news stories you're interested in, while also analysing your own biases. My favourite feature is what they call their blind spot feed. It surfaces upwards of 20 stories every day that you might not be hearing about because of the corruption of the mainstream media. So effectively, Ground News is giving you the tools to understand the truth about what is really going on in the world. It is now the only way I read the news. It allows me to see through media bias and manipulative narratives without having to rely on the MSM. So go to ground.news/outspoken to check it out. You can subscribe through my link for 40% off the Vantage plan. That's a big discount, and it's what I use for unlimited access. I should say a couple of things. Ground News subscriber funded, and supporting my sponsors also supports my work, of course. And for less than a Netflix subscription, you can get all the world's news in one place and think for yourself. This is a game changer for the news junkies of the world. So that's ground.news/outspoken. But now back to the show. You weren't intending to announce the Integrity Party at all this week, but events have run away from you, and it feels like there's already a big amount of momentum. I mean, you saw the results of both of those polls. Even if you take the YouTube result, to go from a standing start to 30%, it's pretty damn incredible, isn't it?
So can I just say a couple of things on that, Dan, if I may? The first is I'm not leader of Integrity Party. We haven't chosen a leader yet. And one of the reasons I don't want to talk too much about Integrity Party is because it is a very early stage. We intend to rename the party. Lawyers are drawing up the constitution, and a leader has yet to be appointed. When we get to that stage, then I can talk, nonstop, about integrity to your heart's delight. But I think one of the reasons that Integrity Party, myself, as I was named alongside it, has done so well in your poll is more to do with the fact that people have now seen through Nigel Farage and what he is, which you so brilliantly set out actually in your opening remarks to this program, where you described Nigel as moving colloquially, I would say, from what is the right, which I see the right really is an inappropriate description, but moving away from a pro-British agenda, pro-sovereign, proud, independent, prosperous United Kingdom, making policies for the UK and its people, moving from that position actually to something where he was even on the record saying the other day that he admired Keir Starmer. And he would put Charlie Mullins, a Remainer, forward as a candidate, and removed his his adversity to illegal migration by saying that not all illegal migrants would be deported, and so on and so forth. So we've seen Nigel Farage move from a pro-British position to actually a much more nuanced, as you rightly pointed out, a kind of hodgepodge of the Liberal Democrats, Labour, and the Conservative Party. And I wouldn't mind him particularly moving economically to the left. One can make that argument, but
sort
I
of
think
a Marine Le Pen.
Yeah, absolutely. But constitutionally and culturally, there is no room for any movement to the so-called left, because what this country desperately needs is a constitutional revival and a restoration, you might say, and its culture to be also restored. And Nigel Farage is weakening his position on these two fundamental positions. That's the first problem that Farage has. The second problem Farage has is that he is a narcissist. And I'm in no doubt in my mind that the reason Rupert Lowe was set aside was because he was doing so well for the party. Rupert is a team player. He is not someone who goes out and seeks his ego being massaged. But Nigel Farage's ego is extremely prickly, as it is with most narcissists. So the writing was on the wall for Rupert Lowe when he started doing so well, and Elon Musk pointed out that he'd make a better leader than Nigel Farage would at Reform UK. So there are two things happening with Farage. He's being revealed for the political expedient he is, that he doesn't actually have a political philosophical framework on which to hang his politics. And he's a prickly narcissist. And the other thing that is a consequence of particularly the latter of those two vices that he has is that he hasn't created a proper party. Everyone everyone says to me, Nigel Farage is reform, reform is Nigel Farage. And I agree. That's what it is. That's what it has become.
Okay, but
no
what about
party
people who
can go
say,
on to form? Yeah.
Ben, what about people who say, I'm just looking in our live chat at the moment. So Nigel Parkett taking a comment who's very disappointed. He's got a sad face and he says, let's just divide the vote and allow Labour back in.
So it's not about dividing the vote. First of all, you need to ask yourself what is it that you're dividing? And I would say a vote taken away from Reform UK as it pivots away from the United Kingdom, away from the kind of rescue that our constitution and culture requires. A vote away from that party is a vote well taken away. So I don't see it. I didn't see it splitting the Conservative vote in the last general election because the Conservatives had so fundamentally lost their way. I absolutely refute any argument that somehow Farage offers a solution when he's so demonstrably heading away from where we need him to be. That's the first thing. But the second thing is we're a long, long way from 2029. The key thing that we must now first establish on the political landscape is what do we want our next government to do? I don't want it doing what Farage is indicating he's going to do. I don't want it, well, I don't really know where Kemi Badenoch is. She's really kept her cards very close to her chest. But what I do know is that certainly Rupert Lowe and myself stand unequivocally for a restoration of our constitution and our culture, that we stand unequivocally for a proud, independent, sovereign United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland, something else that Farage has turned his back on. He doesn't care about Northern Ireland. He is on the record saying he sees a united Ireland as inevitable. And if you can't even define the democratic unit of the United Kingdom, the unit for which you are standing, the democracy which you want to protect and promote, if you can't define that, if he can't recognize that Northern Ireland is a fundamental part of that democratic unit, he's lost. And that's why I think you've seen the polling result, because people are desperate for a restoration of our country.
There are two specific criticisms that I just want to put to you, Ben, because they're both out there in the public domain.
Sure.
The first is in regards to Tommy Robinson, and Lawrence Fox, the Reclaim leader, posted on X, I really admire Ben Habib as a human being. He is a man of integrity, dedication, and commitment to the betterment of the United Kingdom. I can also understand why he wants to start a new political party, given how unbelievably dire Reform UK are. Nowadays, I apply the Tommy Robinson test to everyone, especially if they want something. The test is very simple. Will you include Tommy in the party? I asked Ben Habib this on the phone 10 days ago. The answer was no. The last thing we need is Reform Mark II. The original version is bad enough. We need a big tent where everyone is welcome. So is that true that you've ruled out Tommy Robinson being part of the party? Is Lawrence correctly representing your conversation?
So just to say, I love Lawrence every bit as much as he loves me. We're good friends. But I don't think he's quite conveyed what I said to him. He asked me whether I would have Tommy Robinson in the hierarchy of the party. And I wouldn't. I see no need for it. And I don't think Tommy Robinson wants to be in the hierarchy of the party. However, every single British citizen, every single individual in the United Kingdom of Great Britain and Northern Ireland that's on the electoral register will be free to join as members of our party. No one will be tossed out as a member of the party simply because they might hold views with which one or two of the members of the leadership
So Tommy Robinson
disagree.
would be welcome.
As a member, absolutely.
As a member, okay.
No, there will be no prohibition on anyone joining our party. Anyone can join. Even a Corbynista can join if they want to. And I would have more
What about
problem
running? What about, I mean, look, he says he doesn't want to, but what about if he wanted to run, you know, in Clacton, for example, Ben Habib?
So the difference between
which I have heard people genuinely discuss, by the way, this idea of Tommy Robinson running against Nigel.
So the difference, the stark difference, which will be revealed between the party for which I represent, though which I'm not leader, as I say, the Constitution will make it very plain that we have checks and balances and processes in place, which will naturally bring forward candidates, naturally bring forward policies, and there will be a collaborative and consensual basis on which all these things are established. That is in stark contrast to reform. So I'm not going to comment on the candidates that the leadership might wish to appoint in due course, having gone through the processes that the party will set up. And, you know, the processes will bring forward the candidates that will stand.
And I also just wanted to put to you what Alex Phillips said, colleague of yours, former Brexit Party MEP, alongside you. And she thinks this is a big mistake, Ben. She wrote, so Ben Habib has decided he can establish, grow and run a new political party. Let's see how that goes, shall we? And after all his slurs against Nigel, he is the sole director. Ironically, it's also named the Integrity Party. I didn't see much grace and integrity in his bitter diatribes on X that showed an absurd lack of self-awareness. It took Nigel Farage and a dedicated team decades of hard work and sacrifice to gain a political foothold. Ben is about to find out what realpolitik looks like. Enjoy splashing in the beginner's pool with all the other funnies. How many are there now? Heritage, Reclaim, UKIP 2.0. The other one I can't even remember the name of. Setting up an alternative right-wing party is the new businessman's weekend hobby. They should stick to golf or tinkering with old cars. Ben, your response.
Well, I love playing golf. I'm not as good as I should be. My handicap should be a lot lower. I think if I practiced, I'd be a lot better. But I mean, if she thinks that it's such a forlorn and pointless exercise, she should not worry about us. Move on, Alex.
Calvin Robinson, what do you make of the Integrity Party?
I think it's a wonderful idea. I think if Nigel Farage can't find room for people on the right of British politics within his party, they should start their own party, absolutely. I would have liked Ben Habib to have joined UKIP, which is already established, and with Ben's expertise, it could have helped the party and the right of British politics, but I understand he wants to go his own way, and I fully support him in that. I think it's sad to see Alex Phillips attempting to gatekeep the right of British politics, and she's clearly downing a vast amount of Farage Kool-Aid and actually highlighting the problem with reform in that it's all about Nigel Farage. It is the Nigel Farage show, and actually we need more than that. We need better than that in British politics. It's time for a change. It's time to move on from the uni-party. We don't want someone who wants to be a part of the establishment. We want someone who's going to break apart the establishment and create room for ordinary common sense British people and their ordinary common sense British values.
Thank you so much for watching Dan Wootton Outspoken. Please click on my face just to the bottom left to subscribe to this brand new independent news source and turn on the notification bell so you'll be alerted to our brand new live shows, uncancelled interviews and special royal episodes. Outspoken is also now available as a podcast, so you can listen to the show every weekday on the go, wherever you are.